morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. How y'all doing? It's Kaiser. Well, as I'm sure you've all figured out by now, because I'm getting to this recording a little bit later than usual, Nelson Peltz and Jay Rasulo have lost their bid for the board of Disney, and Bob Iger gets to continue on apace with his team of yes men, all the original ones that were on the board that have greenlit every bad idea he has had for the last several years, meaning that there will be no change in Disney going forward.
Son of a bitch!
Yes, and I get it. That's definitely kind of my sentiments too. It's been a bit rough, but you know what? Follow with me. As far as I'm concerned, I personally think that this possibly could be a good thing.
What the fuck is wrong with you?
I know. Hear me out, because I have a theory on this. I'll get to it in a little bit. I want to go ahead and tackle everything that happened here. Now, I will be completely honest. I am being facetious. This is fucking terrible. This is awful. This is the worst possible outcome we could have. But I can see a way that this could work out to our advantage in the future. But again, you're going to have to follow me down a rabbit hole. Please stick to the end of the video. I guarantee you I will explain everything, but just bear with me. We're going to get into all this. We're going to explain everything that went on today, because today was very eventful. And believe me when I say that this was a big ouch for Disney. This may sound like a Disney win. This is not a win whatsoever for Disney. They got absolutely shellacked today. And boy, howdy, I am excited to be able to kind of finally really start to talk about this. So I wanted to play you guys some serious clips from this like actual shareholder meeting webcast. Now, typically within about 4 hours from the time that the actual like call happens, usually they have the replay of the event online. Yeah, it's still not there. It says, well, the replay will be available shortly. Several hours later. The proxy statement's there, the annual report's there, but nothing else. Well, okay. Let's rewind the clock. Let's go back to before this actual event took place. So apparently there were a lot of things going on before this vote took place. Disney had stock analysts that boosted price target by $15 ahead of their crucial market shareholder meeting. They were confident in the long-term strength for the parks, growth for the renewed focus, and profitable growth of the company's media and entertainment assets. Look, it was a whole thing. And yeah, it was one of those where there were a lot of people trying to bank some information in what was going on. I mean, even Vanguard actually got on. Vanguard voted in favor of Bob Iger, and eventually BlackRock joined them on that, as well as a few others. So what's interesting to note here, and I've been trying to find actual verified data on this, but from everything that I'm finding, it looks like Nelson Peltz secured about 30% of the actual shareholder vote, which is a very large amount. It may not sound like that much, but 30% is actually a pretty good chunk, all things considered. But trust me, Disney did not make it out of this whole thing unscathed, and it was devastating. So after watching everything that went on, so what we kind of wanted to go back and talk about there is that there were several very interesting leaks that came out about this board vote. So let's go to Reuters. So back on April 1st, so Disney edges ahead in battle for board seats with activist investors. Again, this is Reuters. This is one of the most preeminent news organizations on the planet. They started running stories like, hey, we've got information, insiders saying that Disney is edging ahead of, Nelson Peltz and whatnot. And yeah, saying Walt Disney appeared to pull ahead of activist investors in the battle for board seats in the future of the global entertainment conglomerate, with more than half of all shares voted before the company's annual meeting on Wednesday. Hold the frick up. April 1st. That's Monday. They're saying they were reporting this and saying that of those, it showed that Disney was ahead. That's a freaking problem. Now, why is this a problem? Okay, well, let's go over here because this is a very important post that we need to go over. So this was a tweet put out by Bill Ackman, and this is extremely important. We need to read this through in its entirety because this basically exposes Disney to some serious potential litigation and whatnot with the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, because this is a blatant violation of what they did. What they did was a blatant violation because Reuters, the only place that they could get this information from is from Disney itself. It's not just some leaker. This was strategic, and I'll explain why. Let's read the article. It goes into it. There have been a few recent articles in the press about Disney winning its proxy contest with Nelson Peltz based on early election returns that have been leaked to the media. We don't have an investment in Disney, but I thought it useful to point out the inappropriateness of these leaks to the press. Only the company and its advisors have access to how shareholders have voted before the day of the annual meeting. Only the company and its advisors have access to how shareholders have voted before the day of the annual meeting. Very, very, very important to note that. My understanding is that it is illegal to release the outcome of a vote prior to it being finalized, as it has an effect of manipulating the outcome. Here, the company and or its advisors have leaked that Disney is winning the contest. It is really inappropriate to have done so. And how does one know that Disney and or its advisors are at the source of the leak? If Peltz were winning, there would be no press leaks. This is inside baseball, but this is 100% correct. The reason why the progress of an election for directors must be kept confidential unless the results are final is that leaking the results can affect the ultimate outcome. Institutional shareholders worry about offending management by voting with an activist. They are concerned that if management learns that they have voted against the incumbent directors, they may lose access to management going forward. In other words, Bob Iger is less likely to come visit or take a call with a shareholder if the shareholder voted with the dissident. This is clearly a close election. Institutions don't want to risk voting against the incumbent board if it is clear that the activist will lose. They want to be seen on the winning side of the election. Here, the company and or its advisors have leaked the early results in order to tip more institutions and other shareholders to vote for the incumbent board, unfairly tipping the scale in the incumbent board's favor. In other words, an institution may think if Peltz is going to lose, it is not worth taking the risk of offending management by voting for him. This is unfortunately not an uncommon practice. Years ago, in our proxy contest with ADP, the company and or its advisors did the same thing. The SEC Gov should do a thorough investigation of this proxy contest and appropriately punish whoever is responsible for this miscarriage of shareholder governance and justice. Companies of the caliber of Disney and or its advisors should not behave this way. Lastly, but importantly, I think highly of Nelson Peltz. I am sure he would be greatly additive as a member of the Disney board. Ask yourself, why is the company fighting so hard to keep him off? The fact that the company leaked the early returns to the media is further evidence that an activist of Nelson's caliber deserves to be on this board for all shareholders' benefit. Based on my knowledge of Nelson's capabilities and the dirty tricks implemented by the company and its advisors, I strongly recommend the shareholders vote for Nelson Peltz for the Disney board. Institutions who have already voted still have time to change their vote. It is time that we made an example of Disney here so that this bad practice does not continue to poison shareholder democracy. That is a very, very powerful statement here from Bill Ackman. And yes, that is a major, major violation that potentially could have swayed the vote out of Nelson Peltz's favor. Now, what's interesting is that this was the article that was published here on April 1st, on Reuters. Disney edges ahead of battle with board seats. Well, then there was another interesting thing that happened. So another article was put out. Now, what's interesting is that the original article with the original April 2nd date is not available anymore. It's gone. But I happen to actually have a screenshot. So let me go ahead and bring that up here because I think it's extremely important for us to be able to see this and completely understand what is going on here. So bringing this up here. There we go. So this is actually a screenshot from that actual article. So April 2nd, Reuters, Walt Disney Co., blah, 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 has secured enough shareholder votes to defeat a challenge against the board mounted by Nelson Peltz's hedge fund, Try and Fund Management. People familiar with the matter said on Tuesday. Again, look at this link. Reuters.com, business, media, telecom, Disney prevails over Try and board fight. Sources say, now it says 2024 4-3. April 2nd, the day before the vote happens, this article was run on Reuters. Well, here's something also interesting, because the same article got published literally the same day, or literally the day after. So let me grab that here. So this is the article as it was, or at least where the link that was on that screenshot should have been. Well, now that article is posted here. Notice the date change, April 3rd, 2024. Exclusive Disney prevails over Try and board in fight. Again, April 2nd, Reuters. Walt Disney Co. has secured enough shareholder votes to defeat a challenge against a board mounted by Nelson Peltz's hedge fund Try and Management. People familiar with the matter said on Tuesday. Again, they're coming out and saying it right there in the media. We have it right here. The day before the vote even happened, they're saying that they already had this in the bag for Bob Iger. Now, whether that's the case or not is a moot point. They could have had that and it probably was legit. Now, here's the issue, though. The issue is this is still not supposed to be leaked ahead of the actual vote because it can sway the outcome. That's a serious problem. So, anyway, moving on to the actual meeting itself, there were a lot of things that I really want to be able to show you guys that unfortunately I can't actually show you because as I mentioned earlier, the playback version is not available yet. But I do have this because this is actually very, very important. So on the actual investor call, there are various propositions that the shareholders can also vote for. One of those propositions, Proposition 7, was basically asking Disney to get out of all the woke culture stuff and specifically the transgender issue. So let me pull this up here. So this is from Chloe Cole, content creator, And apparently she's 19 years old, had been kind of going through and had gotten transgender surgery, like had gotten a double mastectomy. And well, then decided after that, to detransition. Well, apparently there's some things there, and I'm gonna let her explain it in her own words. But yeah, this is extremely disturbing. And let me just play the clip. And let me just play the clip and I'll let you guys decide. So
She limit the presentation to 2 minutes at most. Your line is open, ma'am.
Good morning. I am Chloe Cole, patient advocate for Do No Harm, a group that seeks accountability in the medical profession. I am presenting proposal number 7 titled Report on Gender Transitioning Compensation and Benefits, sponsored by National Legal and Policy Center. Disney pays for gender transition interventions, but not detransitioning care. Therefore, the company discriminates based on gender identity under EEOC regulations. I speak from personal experience as someone who was deceived and physically harmed at a young age by gender ideology, validated by the medical industry and pushed to the masses by corporations like Disney. Influenced by modern media and social networks, I began a transition to male at age 12. By age 16, after practitioners I trusted encouraged me to take puberty blockers and get a double mastectomy, I tried to come back to reality, but it was too late. My body has been irreversibly damaged, and years later, my chest is still in bandages. My doctors have abandoned me. You doctors look and shrug. As a result, I am suing those professionals who steered me into taking these destructive steps that have permanently scarred me. But Disney, in its arrogance, has responded to our proposal by stating that I am only trying to generate attention for a limited agenda. Mr. Iger, Disney, under your watch, is pushing the limited agenda of gender ideology. Disney has become the Ursula that is stealing the voices of thousands of little Ariels across the world by telling us that we can be something that we can never become. The lawsuits are coming, sir. It's only a matter of time before current or past employees whose bodies and lives have been irreversibly harmed will show up at your door looking for justice and restitution. Please vote for proposal number 7.
wow. That was extremely powerful. And yeah, so this audio, I can verify. I was watching live when this call came through and this was read on there. I'm so glad that she recorded this and we can actually see it as it happened live, like what was happening live, because this is exactly what I'm talking about. So again, this proposition 7, was put forward to Disney and the board. Now, this got read off, and I mean, everybody that was watching this, myself included, was like going ape shit. Like, oh my God, this actually is happening right now. And yeah, summarily, what ended up happening was that almost immediately after the other potential people trying to get on the board, and these things for the propositions had already been stated, they read off that Peltz was not getting on the board. He got outvoted. Bob's dream team of his favorite yes men, as well as Bob Iger himself, are staying all on the board. Peltz and Rasulo lost their bid, and that they started reading off all the propositions, and including Proposition 7, all of them were denied. So yeah, Disney not only doubled, but tripled, quadrupled down on this. That's a very serious issue, in my opinion. So where does and this is the same at time at this where old Bobby Iger is saying Disney's job is not to advance any kind of agenda. Yeah, sure. Because this has all been them getting involved in identity and gender politics and all the usual stuff that they continually do time and time and time and time and time and time again. And it's really gotten people angry. People want change. And that's why they were trying to get Nelson Peltz and Jay Rasulo on the board at Disney to try and help right the ship. Well, that's no longer the case today. So Asked whether Disney would stay out of politics, CEO Bob Iger said that the company is not out to, quote, advance any kind of agenda, unquote, but rather is focused on entertainment. Quote, our job is to entertain first and foremost, and by telling great stories, we continue to have a positive impact on the world and inspire future generations, just as we've done for over 100 years. Disney has always been and will continue to be a source of hope, joy, and optimism for people of all ages. We're committed to telling stories that reflect the world around us and using those stories to entertain people from all walks of life, unquote, Iger said during the company's annual shareholder meeting on Wednesday. Quote, I have always believed that we have a responsibility to do good in the world, but we know that our job is not to advance any kind of agenda. So as long as I am in the job, I'm going to continue to be guided by a sense of decency and respect, and we will always trust our instincts, unquote, he continued. So that's straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. Well, not long after old Bobby Iger said this stuff, and after denying Prop 7 and, everything else, it started to get really, really interesting because they ended the proxy vote. They ended the call, or they ended the institutional shareholder call-ins, and then they had a situation where they were like, okay, let's take a little break. We've got a little bit of we got some promo stuff to show you, and it was a whole bunch of pre-rendered teasers and concept art and a lot of things like that. Apparently they have announced as of today, and this is one of the reasons I wanted to show you that clip, that they're going ahead with Moana 2, and that they're going to make Moana 2 and have it out in theaters this November, 6 months away. The movie, they don't even have any clips of it. They have not even got it into production yet. It is still all in the planning stages. So they're trying to tell us that they're going to make this movie in 6 months, which seems to start backing up some claims that we heard with regards to Wish. Allegedly, Wish was animated in 3 months. Completely ignore the fact that like Frozen and all these other like major Disney classics that have come out in the last several years and whatnot have apparently all taken years of development and animating before they were ready to be brought out into the world. But now they're just straight up releasing some of these in 3 months, and Wish looked terrible. There was a lot of problems with it. And well, now they're saying they're going to do the same treatment for Moana 2. Yeah, a lot of problems there. So, yeah. Then they went to the section where they're actually doing kind of, I guess you could say, a Q&A with shareholders, where individual shareholders can call in, ask questions directly to Bob Iger. Bob Iger answers them. And, they can be as pointed or as candid as they want. Well, here's the twist. Not a single person was on that call. Yeah. The actual questions were apparently pre-screened and pre-selected, and they were read off by an AI voice in the actual call. They were read by an AI voice, and then Bob Iger answered them. And I will be completely honest, this whole thing, I would listen to it. I went back, I re-listened to it over on one of the other channels that had been streaming it a couple of times. I swear to God, I feel like this is absolutely pre-recorded. Like they had already pre-recorded the questions, pre-recorded Bob Iger's answers, so he didn't even actually have to be there. It just sounds so rehearsed. And the questions were so softball too. So yeah, there's a lot of problems to go around with that. So and immediately following all this happening, so they announced that Peltz and Rasulo were not getting on the board. They announced a whole bunch of these gobbledygook products. Apparently, they're doing a park area for Avatar, and all they had to show for it was one piece of concept art. They announced Moana 2 was going to be out in theaters in November. And one of the things that they showed was a piece of concept art from Moana. Not even an actual clip of anything. They showed a really cringe clip of some show called The Bear that was really just annoying and cringe. And I hated it. Yeah, if you were going to try and get somebody to watch a show, that's not the clip I would have used. But as all this is going on, before they get to the Q&A, and then trust me, the Q&A just sealed the deal for everybody. Walt Disney Company started actually doing something interesting. Live, as we watched on this, they started losing money. Like the stock started to drop precipitously. And I'm going to bring this up because this is actually quite illustrative of my point. So I actually started keeping a running tally of this. So right here, you can see this was at 2:11 p.m. I posted this, that they had dropped 2%. And it was about probably 13 minutes, probably 13 to 15 minutes since they had read off that little bit of information about how the board was not going to get Peltz or Rasulo. Over the resulting minutes, as this continued to go on, the stock continued to drop. And yes, it absolutely did drop over 2%. And it's continued to drop kind of precipitously as the day went on. Now, as of 3:13 p.m., it had dropped to $118.90 per share, a drop of 3.21% in their stocks. Currently, right now, at this time of this recording, it is at $18.98, a drop of 3.13%. Like that is, we can clearly see this right now. That's what it is right now. It might drop lower tomorrow. It might stabilize. We don't know. We'll kind of see how things go. But shareholders are not happy. And so, yeah, I had to come up with, I did at one point make the comment, okay, hear me out. So this is the part I wanted to talk to you about, getting all that other stuff out of the way first. Okay, so Nelson Peltz and Jay Rasulo, they have lost their proxy votes. Why do I think that this could be a good thing? Okay. Why? Very clearly, it's easy to understand because Disney under Iger has been nothing but a giant failure. Bob Iger has decided that he's going to double down on politics. He's going to buy a bunch of expensive buy a bunch of expensive things, IPs like Star Wars and Marvel and all these other things, and then he's going to start doing something very interesting, which is basically hiring a lot of political hacks and then running these giant franchises, these money printing machines into the fucking ground. And they're losing money. I mean, as we've discussed before, Disney lost like $100 billion, $100 billion in like its market actualization or something like. We talked about it the other day on. They lost $100 billion. Okay, out of 350 some odd billion that the company had in its total like assets or something. And then you really start to kind of get into it. So they've lost all that money. They lost conservatively a 1.3 billion at the box office last year. It looks like this year is going to be as bad, if not worse. And well, their parks have already got record low attendance. There is all kinds of issues going on. Nobody is interested anymore in the parks, but there are still packed lines over at Universal, that kind of places. They've already had to lay off tons of employees. They have already had to, just all sorts of other issues with, inflation and then raising park ticket prices. Do you think that all this is going to get better with the current status quo? Because it's not. So I think that here's my thought. if Disney's going to run this shit into the fucking ground, then you know what? Who better to do so than Bob Iger and his dream team board of all his favorite yes men without having Nelson Peltz or Jay Rasulo there to try and throw a monkey wrench into the works? Because now we get to, after all the talk of like how they're going to right the ship, they're the adults in the room, and they don't need some activist investors to try and fix things. They're going to say, okay, we can rebuild this company. We can fix everything. They are running full steam off a cliff. I guarantee that. There's going to be more ticket price hikes. The Bob Iger administration is going to continue to fail. There's going to be more layoffs, I guarantee, at some point in the near future. The box office is going to continue to tank. And the parks are going to continue to be empty. Disney is a dying brand. Bob Iger's contract is not up until 2026. He's supposed to choose a successor for that. Now, from some of the information that I have heard, we do have an idea that there is Dana Walden is potentially looking to be his current top contender for that. And I'll be completely honest with you. If you thought that things were bad under Iger, wait until Dana Walden gets in, because it's going to get even fucking worse under Dana Walden. Let me just be completely upfront with you about that. So that right there is the whole breakdown of everything that's happened, what is going on, and why it has happened. Again, I apologize that I couldn't give you guys playback of the actual meeting itself. I feel like I owe that to you guys, but it just wasn't available at the time. But yeah, Disney has officially ended its proxy battle. Nelson Peltz has lost. Bob Iger has won. And everything continues at Disney in the status quo. So, I'll be completely honest with you guys. Disney, as far as I'm concerned, is a dying brand. They have done all this stuff. They've completely run this company into the ground. They're going to continue to run it into the ground. And I'm not entirely sure they wouldn't try and run this into the ground so they can buy up a shitload more shares of this company and then have somebody come around behind them and build it back and actually make those shares worth something and then sell those off. But you're talking about an extremely long game. You're talking about a long game that is like at least 5, 10, 20 years plus, down the line, which is all well and good. But if you look at Bob Iger and you look at Dana Walden, his potential successor, and you look at the current situation at Disney and how they're continuing to double down on all these policies and all these things and all these ideas, I don't see this ship getting righted anytime soon. And frankly, I think they're going to run this company straight into the ground instead of trying to pull up at the last minute and save their own financial hides. That's just my opinion. I'm not a financial analyst. I'm a movie guy. But based on my layman's view of the situation, that is what I see. Definitely longer video. Apologize for how long that took, but I wanted to make sure that absolutely you guys got a chance to hear everything, understand everything that I was saying, and really get to grips with it. And yeah, definitely go down there, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. Please let me know what you're thinking in the comment section down below, and I will see you all in the next video. Peace.
So you have chosen death.